Okay, well, good morning or good afternoon, depending upon when you're listening to this recording. Um, I obviously today, this morning, um, Monday the 24th, uh, we have problems with Zoom. All right, so somewhere along the line, some connection between ourselves and the Zoom and the Canvas applications has gone awry. So, when we have situations like this, the challenge is always to be able to figure out what your plan B is. All right. So this is our plan B. So what I'm doing is, and I'm actually planning on doing this through over the course of the term as well, is to record the lectures as well. So we will be doing it in class, and in addition, I'll also record this as a lecture. So we'll consider this one to be our first recording for the content for our section. So we're uh, working on right now. We'll go back and look at our modules. Where we are at right now is last week. We completed last week this module one, which is really just the introduction to Microsoft Office. So as we had talked about, first the concept of data, and then also what is Microsoft Office and some of the functionality of Office. So in module two, we're going to be looking specifically at Excel. So this is our introduction to Excel. So we're going to be doing a fair amount of exploration of the capabilities, some of the stuff, some of the stuff I had shown last week in class with Excel. We're going to look at it in more detail here. Okay. So that's basically what I'm going to record. All right. So we'll be getting to that in a second. Just a couple things to catch up on. Our other stuff. The So a couple things we talked about. Number one, actually, this is more kind of, I guess, more overhead. I guess more class maintenance types of things. Somebody had asked about attendance, and basically what I'm doing with attendance is I'm actually tracking it through Zoom. All right, so Zoom gives us the ability to kind of see who logged on, when they logged on, how long they logged on. So it was actually one of the things that was interesting when I looked at last week's report. It looks like some folks may have been having some problems, like got dropped out, anything. If you're having problems with that, please get back to me. I want to. Want to see if we, kind of what we've got, if we could identify what the root cause of that is and how, what we might need to do to fix it. All right. As we heard last week, so there's been a not insignificant change in our schedule, what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it over the course of this term. So our original plan was to do the course remote through the beginning of September, and then shift gears and then go to a hybrid on-site remote approach. Decision was made by the administration last week because of the ongoing challenges with the coronavirus and the circumstances we're dealing with. They've made a decision to kind of defer back to an online mode only for the course of this term. Unfortunate. I was very, very, I very, very much like the classroom environment, but circumstances are what circumstances are. Obviously, LaSalle is not alone in this. You're seeing a lot of stories out there of other institutions that are kind of struggling with the same circumstances. Given that though, our goal and objective here is to make the best possible use of all of the different technologies and tools we have at our disposal to try to make this. Obviously we can't be face to face, but we'll do as close as we can get to that. Okay, so that's kind of what So that was what the message was. So our schedule. So as part of that, what I have done is I've actually made a change on for office hours. So obviously, my plan was I was going to be on campus 2 days a week, and I would have my office hours. I'd be there, Monday, Wednesday mornings, and also Monday, Wednesday afternoons. Given that we've had a change, and we're going to be going remote, What I've done is I've actually gone back and I have created a Zoom meeting. All right. So the change in our office hours is going to be um, this. Excuse me. Is going to be at 10 a.m. So what I'm going to do is between 10 and 11. What I've done is I've set up this meeting, and I'm going to come on 10 o'clock, and I'll just start the meeting. And then if you have to reach out to me, connect with me, just go ahead and you just join the meeting. My plan right now is I'll be here. Yeah, at least for this class. So what I've done is I'm actually teaching 3 sections, so I've carved out 3 separate meetings. So for section 31, we are meeting from 10 to 11. All right. So if there's any questions on that, just send me an email or reach out to me, and we will obviously work our way through it. Okay. So that's change, and let's see. I think I've got that. I've got that. Okay, so I want to talk. Yeah, so what it do? So so one of the things I was doing last night over the weekend, and into well, actually this morning, was I was actually looking at our discussion questions. There's actually some pretty interesting. I think we had some pretty good discussions, some pretty good points people had brought up. With dealing with the question of Microsoft and Office, the functionalities, capabilities of Office in general, and kind of one of the things, a couple of things people pointed out. So I think a couple of things that people had identified of why the function, the capabilities of Office that are really why they have an advantage, why Microsoft has been able to maintain and sustain itself. We're talking about a product now that's been around 30 some odd years. Their ease of use, using the innovation of things like the ribbon as an innovation tool, which is a pretty big, which is actually, it was a lot of, a lot of engineering went into that, and it's in some ways it's maybe not apparent until you start using it, and it does simplify. If you compare the ribbon, leveraging the functionality of the ribbon versus the traditional Windows pull down menu, there was a pretty big um, you know advantage, some real capabilities that were brought forward, both in terms of ease of use and efficiencies. A couple other things people pointed out, things like breadth of functionality. So I think that was a good thing too. I mean, really, what they've done is they've really have created a tool that kind of covers a large portion of what you do in an office. If you remember our video of from last week around 9 to 5, where you saw everybody using typewriters and pushing paper and doing things like that. Basically, they kind of boiled it down to there's 3 key things that we do in an office. We send communications. Obviously, we send communications, but we do we create documents. So creating Word documents. Word is a highly capable platform around that. The ability to analyze data, a working tool that we can do analytics and work with data, which is Excel. So as we talked about, kind of the history of the spreadsheet, what they've done, that, and then combined with presentations, be able to do business communication of thought, ideas, concepts. All right, and then taking all 3 of these and kind of blending them all together into a single platform. And marketing in that fashion was a pretty, that's enabled, it was a big thing that Microsoft had done to get them into the position they are today. Some of the other things, and I think a couple other folks had brought up, which I think is relevant. We're going to be probably talking more about it over the course of the term. Is this idea of the internet. All right, so the internet was the internet and I guess desktop computing is kind of an interesting concept. All right, so it's kind of an interesting thing. PCs really came to the fore, all through the 80s. All right, they became, we went from as I said, it was the whole model of going from one computer per company to one computer per desktop. All right, so that was a big thing, and but there was no networking. Not necessarily networking is the way we think of modern networking, of being able to get access to the internet. Quite frankly, there was no access. There was no internet. For the commercialization, we'll talk a little bit about I can talk a little bit about the history of the internet at some point downstream. But basically, the internet itself did not come into commercial use until 1991. All right, and PCs have been around, at least the IBM PC was introduced in 1980, 81. So it's been around a while. So it was 10 years of PCs without the network, without this internet thing. But then when the internet came in, it was sort of an interesting situation of people. It was kind of like the gold rush. Everybody was kind of jumping onto the internet early on to try to think of what they could ways they could use it, ways they could leverage it. And one of the things that kind of came out was this idea of every machine becoming a node on the internet. So what happened was you had PCs that were on everybody's desk that were maybe connected, maybe had their own private networking, but the ability to take those machines and connect those up, to the internet, be able to get to the internet and use a browser to be able to get to access on the internet on the same desktop, which was another sort of wave of innovation we saw all through into the 90s. So the 90s, sort of like the 80s, were kind of the PC innovation. 90s was internet, the first wave of internet innovation. All right. So what happened was you saw organizations, were using the internet as the first generation was really to use it as a access content. So basically, you would look things up, or you could search. You could do some search things and things like that. What's happened though is internet access has become much more sophisticated. So the first wave was kind of you request something, you look for something and you get something back. The next wave of the internet was more around kind of engaging with the internet. So what we're seeing is, what we've seen, we've seen different ways of this as it's come through, and it's taken kind of different forms. So the wave we're in right now, this latest wave, which has been around about maybe 10 years, is what we call the cloud. It's where we introduce the concept of the cloud, where what we do is, we can access computer resources. We can actually create what used to be physical networks and physical systems. We can create them virtually on the internet and create basically virtual data centers, in cloud computing. All right, so one of the things that's been happening is this cloud. The cloud concept has really been one of those things that has been really driving the industry, for the past 10 years. The leaders in this, the big one is actually Amazon. So Amazon Web Services, which is a cloud service, which is where organizations just simply instead of buying physical computers, they go out and buy virtual machines, the rights to use virtual machines, and they access that across the internet. Microsoft Office. So Office started off as a desktop application. All right. So one of the things that's been interesting, Microsoft's kind of relationship with the internet has been kind of interesting because they adopted things like browsers and built functionality into their platform. But one of the challenges they had was their model is really built around everybody having a computer on everybody's desktop. And if you have a computer on your desktop, you may as well use all the functionality of a computer. So they've been leveraging this idea of having a computer and with Office and Microsoft products running on every desktop, talking back to your data centers and things like that. So that's been kind of their mode. But what's happened is everybody else, there's been a wave of where saying, well, you really don't need to have a computer. You can use handheld devices and you can use mobile devices. So there's been this, kind of, I won't say so much struggle, but one of the challenges Microsoft has had was with their products of trying to adopt and leverage capabilities that the internet provides without necessarily having without necessarily replacing their themselves, because one of their big concerns as well. If you use everything on the internet, then you don't use any Microsoft products. All right, which is not what they want to have. So anyway, so this whole idea of what we're seeing is, and we'll probably take a look. We'll be looking at this maybe more as we move ahead again. Is this idea of leveraging cloud, and how do you and what's happened with Office? Because what's actually happening is Microsoft is actually moving Office from a product that sits on your desktop to a product that sits in the cloud, which you access. All right, so this has been in progress for a couple of years now, and they've made some real progress with it. And it really kind of points to kind of where they're taking their future. All right, so that's kind of what. So that was I think discussions we had for week one were good, and I appreciate everybody's feedback on it. And since we did such a great we had such a great time last time, we're going to do it again. All right, so we're going to have a discussion about 2. So let me actually show you number 2. All right, so one of the things we're going to be talking about this week is Excel and the capabilities of Excel. So a thought popped into my head about, you can do the size of data and spreadsheets that you can create in Excel is enormous. All right, so kind of here's our question here. So basically, as I said, Google is noteworthy for the questions, their questions in their interview process. All right, so one of the more notorious questions get to ask is whether you would rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses. All right. Now the latest version of Excel is basically gives you 1,000,000 rows, actually 1048,576 times 16,384 columns, which means you have 17. Ooh, that's not even a million. That's 17 billion rows in an Excel 2019 spreadsheet. Given the size, this size, because this is obviously very large, would it be better? And if you think about this, would you want to develop a single spreadsheet with 1,000,000 rows in it? Or would it be better to develop 10 worksheets with 100,000 rows in it? All right, so just think about that, and put your thoughts down around what would be a better, what you think might be a better approach, and the reasons why you think that. Okay, so that is our that's our discussion question for next week. All right, so let's take a look at our modules. So one of the things I talked about last week was when we were talking about our the history of Excel and kind of some of the products out there. One of the things Microsoft has put a lot of effort into is developing the idea of tracking and analyzing behavior of people who are on spreadsheets. So you can imagine they've captured the behavior of all sorts of people using their products, like how many clicks and how many what click do you hit first, second, third, 10th, 100. So and they've been doing this for a while. So they were actually doing this in the early 90s. They started in like in the 93, 94 time frame. And by the time they got to Excel 97, they had come up with this idea of, we can, leverage this and help people out. So when they're typing things into their computer, when they're typing things, we can provide assistance. So what happened was they developed this thing called Clippy. And what happened is Clippy would come out, you'd be typing, and then Clippy would pop up on the lower right-hand side of your screen and say, I see you're trying to do this, and would you like some help? All right, which is it's a good idea. However, people found it kind of be intrusive. Now the other problem was you couldn't turn Clippy off. All right, so even if you knew exactly what you were doing and were fully capable of doing what you were doing, Clippy would insist on jumping in and asking if you needed assistance. All right. So this was in Office 97. So this was so Clippy became one of the most despised features of Microsoft Office in history. All right. And what happened was when Windows XP came out, in 2000, 2001, or Office XP release in 2000, 2001. Part of the marketing campaign that Microsoft came up with was basically a set of videos explaining, that you should buy Office XP because you don't have to deal with Clippy. All right, so I've got a couple of videos. I'm going to do the first two. You can look at all three. That gives you kind of the history, a little bit of a history of Clippy, and kind of how things played out with him.
Why, hello there. I'm leveraging real-time, legacy-compliant collaborative micro-branding to complete the most important project in my company's history. As soon as I finish this proposal,
It looks like you're writing a letter.
Ah!
Would you like help?
You little metallic...
You little metallic... Try rephrasing your query. For example, print multiple copies of a file will lead to...
Stop! Listen. Next to Microsoft Bob, you are the most annoying thing in computer history.
You know Bob, he's a friend of mine.
Get lost! Didn't you hear? Office XP has put your skinny metal butt in the digital dustbin. Just look.
XP. As in X paperclip?
Is there any way to turn that moronic paperclip off?
Memo to Bill Gates. If that paperclip pops up one more time, I can't take that thing anymore. I quit. You're toast, pal. I'm going to need you to back out of the cubicle.
Oh, really? Office XP, eh? Well, we'll just see about this. Hey, you! It looks like you're writing a letter! Would you like...
Beat it.
And so let's. I know you're on the edge of your seat, waiting on this one.
Hello, tech desk.
Yes, it looks like you're using Office XP.
What? Who is this?
Don't you miss having a talking paperclip to guide you through common tasks?
No!
Ow!
So, did they upgrade your computer to Office XP? No, not yet.
And I hope they never do.
Huh? I didn't say that. Hey, nice hat.
Thanks.
Hey, I've got that Office XP now. Oh yeah? What do you think?
Because I hate it.
Say what? Hey, when did you get glassed? Oh, hold still. Hold very still.
Ouch.
I hear we're upgrading to that new Office XP. Yes, I'm setting you up next.
Too bad Office XP stinks.
But I hear Office XP stinks. Really? Who says that? This plant does. Listen, I'm a tech guy. I make a lot more than this plant. Office XP is a great upgrade, and it doesn't have that paperclip.
But I kind of like that paperclip.
But I kind of like that. No, I don't. I hate that thing. Hey, plant, you're fired.
Ow!
So as you can see, there's a third. Actually, I have a third one out here as well. So we can take a look. You can take a look at that as your leisure. All right, but So as we're looking at this, so basically what I wanted to do is give you kind of a little bit of the history of kind of, so it's interesting. A lot of the innovations that Microsoft has put in, some of them have been really good, others not quite so much. All right, so you can look at the third one and see how Clippy ends up. Okay, so another thing I've done, put out here. So this is what we're starting into now. We're into the Excel fundamentals. Okay, so one of the things I've created out here, and I've put, you can take a look at this. This is the idea of having key terms. So a lot of what, the importance, a lot of times we'll find with technology is the terminology that there's a terminology that's specific to a particular platform or application. So there's a bunch of stuff that within Excel, or there's a set of terms. So these are the things you just want to take some time just to kind of review this and kind of see what because as I'm going through this, I'm going to be using, sometimes I'm going to be using these words and I don't know what that is. So this is kind of a guideline for the different pieces of Excel that we're going to be talking about. This is all the these are the fundamental capabilities or functionality that's built into Excel. Right? So this is our we'll be using all of this, or at least talking about it. So I've got that as a page in our module. All right. And I think that is everything we've got. I wanted to talk about going into. So let's look at chapter 1. So this right now. So what we're going into is we're looking at chapter 1, which relates to the chapter 1 in our book. All right. So our learning objectives. As we said, spreadsheet terminology and components. Obviously, we just created our list of terms there. The ability to navigate worksheets and workbooks. The ability to document your work, enter and edit data, manipulate cells and cell ranges, manipulate columns, rows, manipulate worksheets and workbooks, and finally print, preview, print, and export worksheets. All right, so this is basically what we're focused in on on this first introduction to Excel. All right, so from a starting point, well, the starting point of, what is a spreadsheet? We talked about a little bit about last week, right? So it is a program. A spreadsheet is, it's software. A program with a grid of rows and columns. All right, so it's, vertical and horizontal. The intersection of a row and a column we call a cell. All right. So, so we would define a row as being a horizontal set of cells, and a column is a vertical set of cells. All right, so if we look at a spreadsheet, we'll do a quick look-see here. The rows are marked numerically, and the columns are marked alphabetically. All right, so what happens is the address. If I look at a particular address here, what happens is I am in A, column A, row 4, which is now, you define this as A4. Every cell in an Excel spreadsheet is addressable. All right, that's one of the key features of this. It's basically the intersection of the row and the column. In every cell has a unique address associated with it. All right. So a workbook is, it used to be, you would say a workbook, an Excel spreadsheet was, basically you had a single sheet, of it would be laid out in a single sheet format. So basically you would have one page with rows and columns. Right? One of the features that got added to Excel over the years is this idea of creating multiple worksheets in the same within the same spreadsheet. So the idea of is, if you take a collection of worksheets, that's known as a workbook. All right? So we call, so Excel files now are known as workbooks, and workbook contains at least one worksheet. You can have more than one. You can have as many as you can. I guess it depends upon the amount of memory. So, but you can create, multiple worksheets associated with that. All right. So the idea of is you can create. So the idea is you can actually, before it would be you had one spreadsheet would be, uniquely assigned to some function. Now you can blend multiple, combine all sorts of things together into a single workbook, different worksheets with different functions and different capabilities, all within the same device. Okay. Navigation, between worksheets is actually at the bottom of the page. So if I come down here and look at our Excel worksheet here, I just created by hitting the plus on it, I've created worksheet 1. So now there's 3. There's 1, first sheet, second sheet, third sheet. And once again, I can keep going with this. I can keep adding different worksheets. By default, the worksheet has a name of sheet 1. If I right click it, I can rename it and give it something that makes more sense. Part of this is all, this idea of being able to do this stuff is, it enhances the functionality of the application. It enhances the functionality of Excel. So you can document stuff inside the spreadsheet, which becomes really, as time goes on, I think as you get in and see this stuff in the real world, the importance of being able to figure out what somebody else has done becomes paramount. All right, so let's look at that's our navigation between worksheets here. The worksheet window, a lot of moving parts on this, as you can see, so we have up here, as we can see, we have our ribbon. Our quick access at the very top, where we can put icons to be able to execute things. The name box is basically what cell you are on at any given point in time. So if you are on, so I'm here, let's see. As I said, I'm going to just randomly click something here, and I'm on K18. All right, that's what we mean by that. There's a select all. So if you go onto a spreadsheet, if you see this little doodad up in the corner here, if I click this, it basically selects the entire spreadsheet, everything within it. So if I wanted to create a new spreadsheet, very simply, what I could do is I could come here, highlight everything. I could do a Command or Control C, which will copy it. I could create a new sheet. I could put myself up in the corner here. I could do a Control V. And I have a whole new, I basically copied the contents of one spreadsheet over to a whole other spreadsheet. All right. A couple more features around here. Whatever's highlighted with the square around it, that's the active cell. We have, the capabilities. We have formula bars, your active row. So what it'll do is wherever you're at, so let's go back, if we take a look back here real quick. If I click a row, if I click here, any particular cell, what will happen is it will highlight both the row and the column. Right, so the row here, the column here. Which, as these things get larger, the value of this becomes more evident the larger these things go. If you've got a spreadsheet where you can see everything, not a problem. If you get into spreadsheets where you're scrolling page after page after page after page, it becomes a more valuable tool, more valuable capability. As we talk about navigation within worksheets, rows, columns, cells. So these are the big three. When we talk about Excel, it's the combination. A cell is the intersection between a row and a column. It has a unique address. Every cell in a spreadsheet has a unique address. All right. We talked about this in our Office introduction. There are keyboard shortcuts. So as I just did, a control or Command C is copy, Control X is cut, Control V is paste. And there's other ones out there as well. Right? So, question of documentation. So as I just said, one of the things that's important. A lot of times, what you'll find is you create a spreadsheet, and then it gets shared in an organization. So like a work group of people who will all be using a single spreadsheet. So this idea of being able to document what you're doing or what you've done, what it's for, what its purpose is, becomes really important. So there's a bunch of different things in Excel that lets us do this. So this idea of using descriptive file and worksheet names, worksheet titles, row and column titles, cell labels, cell notes, and then dedicated documentation worksheets. So there's a bunch of things that we can do. So in looking at notes, so notes is a relatively recent innovation within Excel, right? Relatively recent. But what you can do is, if I do a right click, there's a couple different ways to invoke this, but I'm just going to do a control click or a click, right click, if you're on a PC. And I've got comments and I've got notes. So this is actually both features. So let's do a note. All right. And what it will do is it will put a little red tag on your cell. So I'm gonna document this cell. I'm gonna say if I can type. All right. So now, so I typed it and it went away. So what happens is, but you'll see this little red tag up in the corner, up in the upper right-hand corner. And what that is, every time you float over that, it will do a pop-up of the note. All right. So once again, this becomes, especially in collaboration activities where you've got multiple people working on a spreadsheet, or kind of doing, or working on a project, and you're kind of using a common spreadsheet. Being able to document stuff, being able to, kind of explain, show your work, explain your work, it becomes really important. All right, because you can write it is quite possible to write a spreadsheet that is 100% functional, but also 100% unintelligible at the same time. Right? And that's not what we're looking for. Right? That's not what we're aiming for. Deleting a note. So once you create a note, you can go and if you right-click it, you come here, you can edit the note, you can delete the note, or you can show and or hide the note, either way. But if I want to do a delete, and it's gone. All right. Remember, right-click becomes, as we're navigating it within Excel, the right-click becomes really important. And when you start it should become a kind of first instinct to right-click a field or right-click, because there's a lot of stuff, and basically a lot of the capability is built off of that right-click approach. Okay, so So entering and editing data. So the whole thing about, the whole purpose of a spreadsheet is we key stuff into it. So we're gonna enter data into it. And the way Excel is structured is, all you do is you can just type stuff into it. And you can type text, you can type numbers, you can type all sorts of stuff in here. So you can put types, as I said, we can put, we put data, so numeric data, character data, we can put pictures, embed, all sorts of stuff, and embed other Word, like Microsoft Word documents or PowerPoint, all sorts of stuff we can put into a spreadsheet. Right? So, but the main thing we usually will be putting into a spreadsheet is data. It's what it's really does. We do most of, right? And the way you enter stuff into a cell, a couple different ways. You can either go to the cell itself and then type. Right. Now you'll notice here, as I'm typing in the cell, it's also typing data up into the formula bar. All right. So I can actually type. Now this is kind of an interesting thing. So this is something you want to take a look at. So what will happen is I just give up the formula bar. I typed. If I go back to the field, I can either edit it in the cell or I can edit it up top. Now the other thing you'll see here, you'll notice, is that I typed it, it's larger than the cell. All right, so I got a couple options with this. All right. If I come up to the top here of the individual cell, if I click it, what happens? I got to say the field is this wide. All right. If I click this, all right, what will happen is it will then expand the cell for that width. All right, so then now the cell is this many characters wide. Right. The other thing I can do is if for example, I would like this to be only this wide, but I want to have all that data in it. What I can do is I can actually highlight the field. I'll do my right click again. I can say Format Cells. And I can go to my alignment. And I have something called text control. I can do a wrap text. When I do a wrap text, what it'll do is it will fit everything into the cell. It will expand it vertically and let it, fit the horizontal width within that horizontal width. Okay, so that is, so this whole formula bar up here, the cells here. What will happen is if you type and type and type and type, what will happen is it will just simply roll over. The thing that's interesting about this, we'll do a longer one again. We'll just type characters in here. Okay, so when I'm looking at this, at first glance, what I'll see is, it spans E, F, and G. Not really. What happens is E is overflowing into F and G. All right. So if I go to F, if I highlight F, you'll see there's nothing here. Actually, I can type other characters into, over top, because what that is. All right. So what will happen is you can overflow, the contents of an individual cell, a whole bunch of things. So a lot of times what you'll need to do, say if I wanted to edit this, I have to go back to the source, which is going to be cell E15 is the source. So I have to go to F15 or G15. There's nothing there because it's all associated with E15. This is one of those things you get, as you get more practice with this, you'll kind of see it and get a little bit more comfortable with its kind of the way this works out. Right. But basically, it's a matter of you just kind of type stuff into it. Data types, the types of data. There's 3 types of data we can put into a spreadsheet. All right. First is text, which is text, uppercase, lowercase, different fonts, different things. The second thing we can put numeric data in. All right. And what happens is you can you can change kind of how things are processed. So this is kind of the things that happens behind the scenes inside of Excel. All right, so what will happen is if I do 1, 2, 3, all right, and so that can be a text 1, 2, 3. Well, actually, you'll see 1, 2, 3, so it'll assume it's not a number. All right, and I'll put 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to add these two together. All right, so I'm going to go. I'm getting a little head of our functions here. So I'm just going to do a sum. So what I did was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and it's 2, 5, 6 is the sum of those two. So I just did a sum. I summarized those vertically. I can also summarize them horizontally if I was so inclined. What I do is I would highlight the two, sum them together, 2, 4, 6. Right now, if I do something like this though, if I do 1, 2, 3, AAA, sum these together. It's simply 1, 2, 3. So it will not include characters, or alphabetic characters in a in a calculation. All right. So what you do is you'll see both data and numbers in a spreadsheet. Those are those two, and then also date and time is specifically called out as a data type. Right. And we'll go more. We'll do more into this as we get into this. Right. We talked about wrap text, the ability to take text, reformat it so it wraps. You say to wrap text, click the desired cell, click wrap text in the alignment group on the home tab. Right. So a couple different ways. There's a couple different ways to do it. You can also use an Alt Enter. Same kind of. They all do the same thing. It's just basically you have for anything for any function in Excel. What you'll find is you have 2, 3, 4 different ways of doing stuff. So cell ranges. So cell ranges. Once again, this is another one of these fundamental things about Excel. All right. So you can, when you're working with Excel, you can either work with a single cell, which is all right. A collection, a set of contiguous cells, both vertical or horizontal. You can also work with non-contiguous cells and other cell ranges. There's a bunch of different ways. So you have, I won't say unlimited functionality or capability, but you certainly have a lot. All right. So we can do cut, copy, and paste. So I think I demonstrated this. A couple different ways to do it. Say, for example, I wanted to copy these 3 here. All right. I did a Control-C, but I can also come up top. I can also do a cut. So I can do it off my top menu. Edit. Paste. Or you actually have it here as well. So I can actually say, for example, if I selected all 3 of these, I can click the scissors, go to another spot, hit paste. So there's a couple, as I said, with anything, we got a couple different ways to do this. So cutting and pasting becomes a really big part of what you want to be able to leverage in Excel, because you can move data around, you can create new things, you can build off of old things. You don't have to type everything else from the ground up. So cutting and pasting is like a fundamental blocking and tackling skill you want to be comfortable with. Okay, cut, copy, paste. Selecting cell ranges. So, as I said, we can do, when we talk about cell ranges, we can do horizontal and vertical, either all horizontal, all vertical, or combinations thereof. So if we look at a quick demonstration of this, I'm going to take these columns right here. I'm going to take everything that's in this range. So it's going to be from from E10 to E25. And I'm going to do a cut. And I'm going to do a paste. Oh, wrong one. Paste. No. Nice if you hit the right command. So we'll do a cut. And then you hit paste. Boom. Now what you'll see is you're going to start seeing some, you'll see these things where, Excel is always looking at what you're typing and it's trying to we'll try to look at. So if you have some sort of reference, as we get into formulas and things like that, if you see something that's got some sort of reference, it will come back and it will warn you, Also, it won't work, but it'll also tell you, what are the things something you've done incorrectly and something you need to adjust or correct. All right. So we can do, with our ranges, we can do a whole bunch of different things. We can go horizontal. So that was, this is a vertical. I can go horizontal. And the way you basically do it is you click a cell and you just drag your mouse. And so I'll click a cell here. I'll go vertical. Or if I want, I can go horizontal and vertical. So say, for example, I want everything from here all the way over to here. So I can do multiple sets of these things. So I can copy that, copy, cut, and paste that as well. All right. So there's a bunch of stuff we can, as I said, there's a bunch of things you've got to practice. We'll be using this in our exercises. Now, drag and drop. All right. So drag and drop is another feature that we can use. So part of the stuff is we can do we can either use a cut or paste, or we can just highlight it and then drag it across the screen. So if you copy cells holding down the control key while dragging and dropping. All right, I think that's it. And I think on Macintosh, and some on Macintosh, this will be a command screen. So I can do let's see, command. No, see if it's still command. All right, well, we will work with this. All right. Anyway, I'll come back. I'll circle back on that one. Okay. So let's go. Drag and drop. Let's go to insert delete. All right. Now what happens is we've got our spreadsheet here. Sometimes we want to insert a cell, individual cell. Sometimes we'll want to insert a row. Sometimes we're going to want to insert a column, or any combination of these things, rows, columns, all these things we can insert this. If we go back out here to our spreadsheet, all right. So if I want to insert, I'm going to change my view here. Back to my radio. So I'm changing my view. So if you come up and you see this thing, it doesn't look right. So these are the different views you'll come up with. So we're back to a regular grid view. So say, for example, I want to insert a column here. All right. What I can do is I can highlight the column. I'll do my right click, and I'll click insert. All right, so that's a column. Now, if I want to insert an individual cell, it'll ask me, now what do you want to do? Do you want to insert, do you want to shift the cells to the right? Do you want to shift them down? Do you want to insert an entire row, or do you want to insert an entire column? So you can move you can move these things around as you see fit, with your functions. Okay. Yeah. All right. So insert, and deleting it kind of works the same way. You can delete a cell, you can delete a row, you can delete a column. Right, so you can, and what Excel will do is it'll ask you, and what you want to make sure you think about before you delete it is, okay, which way do I want to do this? Do I want to move data up? Do I want to move data over? Because what it'll do is if you move a cell out of the way, it will realign everything you have on the screen based upon the removal of that one cell. All right, so let's take a look at clear and delete data. All right, clear and delete data. So once you put data into a cell, it's there. All right, now it can take the form of just data you've entered. It could be a formula, which we'll go into in a little bit. But if I want to get rid of the data, say for example, I got all this stuff here, I want to get rid of it. I can once again do a right click, and if I look down here, I will come up with a clear contents. If I clear contents, what it will do, it will clear anything that's in these cells. So these cells are all back to being blank again. All right. Now sometimes what you'll see is in Excel, you can actually have stuff in a cell that's not visible. I mean, you can make things invisible in Excel. So, but if you do clear contents, what it will do is it will take everything in that cell and will just simply erase it. All right. So the cell is still there. The contents of the cell is gone. All right, so you maintain the position. So if I had a bunch of stuff here, if I did a clear contents, if I deleted it, it would realign. It would move things either left or right or up or down, depending upon what I chose. If I clear contents, everything stays in place. I just take everything out of that particular cell. All right. Merge and center. So merge and center is an interesting bit of functionality. Right? Merging cells together. So one of the things you can do is and this is kind of this can be really useful, but could also be kind of tricky. What you can do is you can take sets of cells. Say for example, the cells are going to be this width, this wide. Right? For right now, I can make it wider if I want. But say, for example, I want to create something. I don't want to, and what it'll do is if I move the width, it moves the entire column. If I want to adjust the size, if I want to create a longer cell, but not mess up anything, mess up any of the data or the alignments of all the other cells, I can actually take a bunch of cells here. I'll take maybe 1, 2, 3, 6 of these. Once again, right click. And if I do a format cells, what I will have is under this text control. So we looked at the wrap text, all right? We can do a merge cells. So if I do a merge cells, what I have now is one cell. It's still one cell. This is still cell H4, all right? Cells I4, J4, K4, L4, and M4 are not accessible anymore. They're not addressable because we've created this one merge cell under the address of H4. All right, and I can just type anything I want in this. And then I can center it if I want. So a lot of, you use this for a lot of times people will be using things like this. We'll be using things like this for, I guess, putting labels and tabs and things like that on their spreadsheet. So what I'm able to do here, this on the control on our ribbon here, controls the vertical and the horizontal centering. All right, so this is my horizontal, this is my center, this is my right, so left, right, center alignment, top, middle, down. All right, so I can create, and once again, I can create merge cells horizontally or vertically. So I could create a whole bunch of stuff. What people used to do at one point was they would use merge cells to create areas where they could put notes into. And then we created notes, and we didn't have to, kind of do this stuff. All right, so it kind of eliminated the need to do that. But you can do it once again. You can do things a bunch of different ways. You'll find a spreadsheet that will have why did somebody do that? Well, because they were used to this stuff before they created a new capability, and they never went back and retrofitted it. Right? That's a reality we end up dealing with sometimes. All right, merge center. Selecting columns and rows to select a click the header. So we can as we build this thing out, as we're kind of going through this, we can do selecting select a row or column. You can click the head or either the letter or the row, respectively. So what do we mean by that? If I come here and I click the top, I've selected every cell. Now don't forget, if you're looking at this just gives you kind of a you see what what's on the screen right now. This can go a million. This can be a million cells. All right, and when I click it, I'm clicking. I've selected all million cells in this column, or I have 16,000 rows. All right, I'm selecting or 16,000 columns. I'm selecting all. I can select all 16. Everything you see. So this is everything 1 to however long you want this to be. Right, so that's what that select all, kind of select row and column. Very quick way of doing it. So you can cut it, copy it, and move it. Because a lot of times what you'll find is you'll be working with blocks of data. You'll create a set of stuff, and then you want to move it someplace. So what you'll do is you'll kind of select it, copy it. Select either all the rows, all the columns. So once again, you can select you can select it, copy it, and then use drag or drop or cut and paste. And we will be using some of this in our exercises. So you're manipulating rows and columns. All right, we can change the width of these things. So right now you have a default size, which is 8.43 characters. Default width. Maximum width is 255 characters. All right, so there is a limit to the size of it, but you can adjust the size of it dynamically. You can judge it by basically going to the top. If I want to adjust the width of a column, we'll go this one right here. I can pull it. Just basically pull it as far as I want, and it will create this cell of that width. I said up to 255. All right. And you'll see, a lot of times in spreadsheets, you'll want to have, you'll have things where if you're entering text. This is much more for when you're entering text or text content. You'll create something wide, and then you can put, you can wrap the text and go vertical. And it works the same way. So you can adjust the size. You can adjust the size of the individual cells. Or you can adjust the size of the row and the column, as you see. Once again, this will be something you'll see more of. We'll have different exercises. We'll be practicing with this. Auto fit. So auto fit is we'll adjust the dimensions. You can say a function that you can select a chunk of data on a screen, and then you can you collect the auto fit column width, and what it'll do is it'll automatically, as you're entering data into it, it will automatically size it based upon the data you're entering into it. So you start off with you enter with like 10 characters. And then you type something that's got 20, it will automatically expand the size of the columns to be 20 characters long. I usually tend to just, I've just become accustomed. This is just my own thing. I'm just become accustomed to just kind of making those adjustments myself as I go. But you can also set it for auto fit and auto sizing. Manipulating worksheets and workbooks. Remember what we said was, a worksheet is a single spreadsheet. All right, and you can add multiple worksheets to create a workbook. All right, or actually a single sheet workbook is still a workbook, but you can create 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, however many you would need. All right, so you go vertical versus horizontal, or you can go. So when we talk about our question this week, our discussion question this week is really looking at this question of, okay, I've got X number of, I've got, do I create a 1,000,000 row data sheet, or do I create 10, 100,000 worksheet or worksheet? Actually, I use data sheet and worksheets kind of interchangeably. So it's works. You create a 1,000,000 row worksheet, or you create 10, 100,000 row worksheets. All right, and the manipulation of this, the functionality that's on this is at the bottom. Control the worksheets is at the bottom of the screen. So I can go. I can add, once again, I can delete them. If I right click it, I can delete it. I can insert a sheet somewhere. So if which will put it right next to it. If you'll note, what I did was I actually had created 5, deleted 1, added 6. It remembers how many sheets you entered. All right. Ordinarily, what you'll see, a best practice would be, no matter what you've got, you should really go back. You create a sheet, you should go back and name what it is, just as a best practice of, so when you come into it, not so much for you, once again for other people who might want to use this thing. All right. We can move and copy worksheets. The ability to move things. From one worksheet. Now, what you can actually do, now one of the things that's kind of slick is that if you have more than one workbook open at a time, you can actually move a spreadsheet or a worksheet from one workbook to a whole nother workbook. So you can take the contents of one and move it over. All right, so there's a function in here we call move copy. All right. So if I do say for example, a move copy of this worksheet here, move or copy. So I can either move it to one sheet to another. All right. I can move it to the end. I can move it before any sheet I got in here. I can create a copy of it, or I can actually move it to a whole other workbook. So I can take a sheet, like this sheet right here, and I can move it, and I'll create a copy. Because if you say move it, it's no longer in its original place. I can just say create a copy. All right, and if I go here, now basically what I've got, sheet 6 is now inside of workbook 1. All right. So you can move things, so you can actually move things between, within Excel, move things between workbooks very simply. All right. So as I said, this kind of this function right here, we can move it from one worksheet to a whole nother workbook, which is pretty neat. Delete, insert, and color worksheet tabs. So you can do all sorts of, we can add, we can delete one, we can insert one, we can rename one, and we can actually put color tabs on it if if you want to be. Color is actually if you're into, part of this idea of human interface, what people will react to. Color is actually a very powerful tool. So you can use color as a means by which to get people to see something or highlight something or contrast something. All right, so it's something, and as we get into more like of spreadsheet designs and approaches and best practices, something we'll be talking about. Autofill. So another kind of an interesting feature of autofill is what will happen is it will we can take copies of information into other cells, and adjust data as we go. All right. So if I have a pattern of data, all right. So we'll take an example here. And we'll say, let's see if we can get this to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so I'll 6 characters. And if I do I want to go back to my home, and I want to do we'll do a copy. I take a 5. What I can do is when I do this column here, when I do a paste, I'm going to copy this and I'll copy this into it. You have all sorts of options. All right, if I do a paste, all right, let me go back and undo this. If I do a paste, I can do a pull down. And what I can do is I have all sorts of options around this. I can either just take the contents of what I just typed in here, or I can say paste the formulas, the number formatting, the source formatting, the values and number formatting, values and the and when we talk more about the contents of cells, so that we're still just kind of in the basic, we're still in the basic blocking and tackling of kind of entering data in, but there's a lot more that kind of goes into it, what we can do and manipulate, and we'll be talking about that. We do paste special. So what I can do is I can do all sorts of, when I do my cutting and pasting, there's a lot of things I can do. I can create contents and auto translate the data. Like if this is formulas, I can take rather than the formulas, I can just take the results of the formulas that are appearing on the screen and move those over. Or I can take the formulas themselves. Or if I've got a range of numbers, it will, if I do, let's see, 6, let's see how smart this is. We'll do Control C. No, I didn't get that. All right. There's a way, and we'll see this in the exercises. So basically, what'll happen is if I get a range of numbers here, if I select a number and then select the range, what it'll do is it will pick up from 6. What we should have done is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but we'll go through that. Okay. Anyway, but we'll be looking more at all the functionality of this within autofill and cut and pastes. A lot of capabilities. We talked about cutting and moving and copying a worksheet. I can actually take that worksheet and move it wherever I want in the, I can take this worksheet here and I can move it to wherever I want. If I just click it and then just move it, it'll move it to, wherever I am. Hopefully this is not going to wreck my recording. Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. Worksheet view. This is basically the bottom page down here is the worksheet, is the view of the worksheet, which is down, which is going to be on the Excel side. These right here, the views. So this is our default view. This is our page layout view. This is our the page break view. All right, so there's 3 views we can work with on this one. We talk about print and print preview. And so if we go into print, we get the print off of the top menu, so the traditional menu, though I think it's also in, you can also put this onto your accelerated menu, but you do File, Page Setup, Print Area, and Print are the 3 things that we use for printing. So we can say page setup. We can define what we want this thing to look like, whether we want it in portrait mode, landscape mode. Thing with spreadsheets, usually you'll see a lot of times they work better, as a landscape, especially if you're going wide, because spreadsheets tend to go wide. I can add margins to it. I can add designated headers and footers. And I can put print titles. I can do all sorts of things that, the special to mark up what I want for the output. Also under print functions, print itself. So obviously you can either have a printer or you can have a PDF. So I don't have a network printer connected, but I could print the spreadsheet and put it into a PDF document and use that. So that's some functionality we're working with as well. Print titles. We talked about the print titles. We talked about the quick look-see of the header and footer, margins and scaling. Orientation, whether you want to go horizontal or do you want to go vertical. So that's landscape. All right, so quick summary. We talked a little bit about text numbers and dates. Data can be edited, formatted, copied, and pasted. Talk about workbook organization, of worksheets, multiple worksheets, rows, columns, cells being the intersection of a row and a column. Everything can be created, modified, inserted, and deleted. So you have maximum flexibility. One of the strengths of Excel is you have maximum flexibility with this stuff. You can create all sorts of interesting and creative things. We talk about ranges. We'll be doing more stuff with ranges. Ranges are selections of cells that can be grouped. It can also be named as well. So there's things we can do with ranges. We can do workbook modifications, margins, orientation, headers and footers, headers and footers. And workbooks can be previewed and printed. Okay, so that's about it. We'll be going back, as I said. What I'm going to do is we're going to come back through again on Wednesday, assuming Zoom is back online. I have every expectation of that. We'll go back through and probably review a lot of this stuff again. This is going to give you, if you go through this kind of this video, will be a kind of a reinforcement of what we're going to be talking about. All right. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you guys a little later. Take care now. Be seeing you.